And the next chapter in the Jets' absolute disaster of a season has been written, and it just gets more and more sad. And frankly, like at this point, it's like a dark comedy. Like the poor Jets fans. This week, the news came out that they benched Zach Wilson after weeks of people calling for his job and him not playing well. They finally listened to the people and benched Zach Wilson. But it turns out when Zach Wilson was your best option to begin with, you probably don't have very good options behind him. When they roll out Tim Boyle and Trevor Simeon and they suck, oh wow, who could have seen that coming?
Shocker.
They were so bad that the Jets have immediately given up on both of them and are asking Zach Wilson, hey, well, we did shoo you out of the building and not only demote you, but make you the number 3 quarterback and kind of embarrass you in front of the whole country. But do you want to come back? And Zach Wilson, according to sources, has said no, and that and now things have changed. That was the news at the start of the week, and
Yep.
Robert Saleh came out and said they weren't founded, and Wilson was now, in fact, just today named the starter against the Texans. But it's just a whole like
The idea of the original part
terrible,
of that story is
confusing
just
saga.
hilarious. Like,
Yeah,
and I mean,
I honestly don't
respectable.
blame him. If
Yeah,
it's
I was
true,
gonna
I don't blame him.
say, like, you honestly, like, he is gonna get a second. We had this conversation already, I think, but he's gonna get a second chance somewhere else if he wants it,
Yeah,
right? Why would he continue to play on such a, frankly, a trash team when he can potentially go to like, I don't know what teams are going to be looking for quarterbacks this offseason off the top of my head, but he could potentially go almost anywhere else, probably have a better opportunity in a new scheme, which frankly he needs. He just needs something new because whatever's
yeah,
going on here isn't working. Like, why would you continue to, frankly, devalue yourself in free agency when you can just sit the rest of the
yeah.
season? I mean, of course he's betting on himself with this, right? Because, I mean, there's also the chance that in the last couple of games here, maybe this wakes him up and suddenly he has a really solid, like, what, 2 weeks before A-Rod comes back, before for like a meaningless 3 week stretch. Like, it's the
Yeah.
Jets season is just crazy. We had this conversation last week as well, but it's just this whole season's just dumb.
Yeah, and it's the kind of thing. I was listening to my favorite NFL podcast around the NFL, and they had this similar conversation, and I thought it was interesting. Where if you're Zach Wilson, what do you do? Because I understand the again, this is if it's true, because this is all rumor. But if it's true that he didn't want to play for the Jets, again, I don't see how you can blame him. But at the same time, if it gets out there that you did not want to play starting quarterback when offered for your team, what team is going to want to take him? That's the other thing. It's like it's as he's kind of in a catch-22 where I think if he we know what he's going to look like behind this Jets offensive line. He's not going to look good, and he's going to lose most of the final however many games he plays, whether Rodgers comes back or not. And so, like, do you just gonna go out there and get slaughtered for another 5 weeks before people get even more tired of you, or do you say you don't want to play? Um, because if you say you don't want to play, the news is going to get out to the league that you're not a good teammate, that you don't take the
Well,
opportunity when
what
given to
exactly what
you.
happened this week? That's what's gonna happen, right? Like, it's the
Yeah,
same thing. Like, it really is the question of like, I mean, what do you even do if you're Zach Wilson? You're in a lose-lose situation no matter what. Like,
yeah,
if he continues playing like he's playing, we keep talking. I mean, again, we've said multiple times he'll probably get another chance. But like, let's say he sucks for the next 5 weeks, does nothing. Do you really want him? Is anybody gonna want him? Like, or at least not
yeah.
at the value that you might get if you just choose to just sit. Like, maybe that's just
Yeah,
like a better choice for Wilson at this point.
because he's just been because it's New York too, and he's just getting lambasted by the media, and his own coach doesn't even know what to say about him at this point. Where he's like coming out and saying, "Oh yeah, Zach is our guy the entire season," and then he benches him to third string. Like
And then they go back to saying
I,
Zach is
I, I
their guy.
yeah, and I feel for Zach Wilson. I mean, he's obviously been like a bust up to this point in his career, and I don't think you can say anything different. Um, but to not get another chance for with the talent he has, because even with this just like doomsday stretch he's had for the Jets, he's shown flashes.
Yeah.
There's the brought it up in another podcast episode, the game he had against the Raiders. I watched that whole game, and that final drive, it's a perfect encapsulation of his career because he shows this tantalizing talent with this throw that you'd think only Mahomes can make.
Yeah.
Complete
Well,
no look pass, perfect on the dot, and then he looks somebody dead and like stares his receiver down and throws a game-sealing interception. If you can somehow get those mistakes out, there's talent there, but he's such an enigma at this point.
you gotta wonder if it's like a mental block. That's almost what I
Yeah.
kind of have gone to. That's kind of where I've fallen with him, I think. Where it's just he does have endless talent. Like if you watched him in college, he had all people were talking about him going above like Justin Fields and going above going above almost
I mean,
Trevor
he did.
Lawrence at times. Yeah, but you know what I mean. Like it's nuts. Like coming into the league, the amount of talent everybody thought he had. He goes to the Jets and just sucks. And I I think I'm almost more willing to blame the room around him, right? More than anything else. Like I still stand by what I said, where it's just he just needs something new. Like you
Yeah.
go anywhere else, like seriously anywhere else in the league, you are probably going to be put in a better environment with more chances to succeed than you have with the Jets. Especially coming into this year, like nobody in their wildest dreams, including Zach Wilson, thought that he was starting this season. Like he kept
Yeah.
saying all that shit before they brought in A-Rod about how he'd make a veteran's life hell, yada yada yada, and like nothing is. Everybody knew it was horseshit the second it came out of his mouth. He knew it was horseshit. He was just talking to talk, but we were seeing life, right? It's felt like this entire season we've just seen nothing but just like a guy drowning. That's pretty much what I
Yeah.
described this season. And that's not him being a bad quarterback. That's just him in the wrong situation. I seriously think you send him to pretty much anywhere else, he'd have 1,000 times more success. That's not even me saying that he'd be a starter. That's just me saying that at least he'd have a chance. Like this whole team,
Yeah.
everybody, Zach Wilson can throw like he could throw not another interception for the rest of the year, throw nothing but touchdowns, and he's not the starter next year. Everybody knows
Yeah.
that.
Yeah, and I think I don't know. I mean, I think you're right. I think a couple things. I think one, if you are a high draft pick in the NFL, there's a reason you got picked that high, and I think if you flame out, everybody should have a chance in another organization because I think coaching is so much of it. If Mahomes didn't get drafted by the Chiefs, I think you're probably looking at him in the same way you're looking at a lot of other quarterbacks who've just like flamed out. If he gets drafted to the Bears, he is not the same player, and I can guarantee that. So I think every first-round quarterback deserves at least some other chance in an organization. And I think the Jets is probably the worst place any quarterback can go because who have the Jets had since about Joe Namath that has actually been a good quarterback for them? That position has been cursed.
A-Rod for a total of
there's-
like 3 snaps.
And even A-Rod, right? Like, I mean, obviously, I can't blame his injury on anything,
Yeah,
but it
of
just
course.
feels like
But,
there's
like-
something around. There's something around this Jets quarterback spot that's just like anybody who seems to touch it seems to fail for
And the
whatever
funny
reason,
thing
whether
is-
it's lack of talent or just bad luck.
The funny thing going into the season is it almost felt like that was the reason Rodgers wanted to come here. Was he wanted to go somewhere
Yeah.
where like he literally there was no chance of him succeeding just to prove he could do it because he's just that kind of guy, right? He's just wants to do it. And the funny thing is he fell on his face with it, not for reasons that are not his fault at all. But he fell on his face with it, and now we're stuck in another season of the Jets being the Jets, and that's the funny thing is it's almost like a verb at this point for like how
Yeah.
like it's crazy. It's crazy what
Yeah.
this franchise is at this point. That they have one of the greatest quarterbacks of all time, and they started going into this year. If I wish I could pull up what we both thought their records were gonna.
We both predicted them in the playoffs at least.
I think I had them winning the division. Like
I might have had Miami over them, but I had them over the Bills. I had them making the playoffs and second in the division at least, if not winning.
it's nuts. Even when I Google the word Jets, the Winnipeg Jets comes up first. That's fucking depressing. Like, what is this franchise? Move them to
Yeah.
Alaska.
Yeah. Honestly, I think that might be better for them because it's like the New York media market, right? I mean,
Yeah, the Giants got
obviously
it covered.
it's there with it's there with the Giants too, but I don't know. I think back to like Sam Darnold and his whole thing about seeing ghosts. I think every Jets quarterback since the '60s has been seeing ghosts, and I think a lot of that has to do with the city they play in.
Yep.
You go to Kansas City and nobody's going to care until you're good, but you go to New
There you go.
York, you go to New
You
York.
got to be good right away. And we've seen that across
Yeah.
all sports. Like
Oh yeah.
the one I always go back to, and Caleb, I think you've probably heard my Alexis Lafreniere arguments for like probably the last 5 years since he was like started becoming a prospect. Going into the league, I think I had him just as high as pretty much any other prospect other than McDavid.
Oh, I heard. Oh yeah, he's the best prospect since McDavid.
Oh yeah, no, I
That's what I
definitely would have
heard.
said it because I at the time I definitely thought it was true. I need to emphasize one thing because I would have emphasized the same thing back then. I wasn't saying that because I thought he was as athletic as McDavid. I just thought when it comes to hockey IQ, he's one of the smartest prospects I'd ever seen. And I think a lot of people would have told you that at the time. And then he comes in the league, plays in New York, sucks ass. That's that. Like it seems like in no time at all, everybody just gave up on him. Same thing with Capo Caco over there. He sucked, right? Like, or at least sucked compared to like comparisons of what he was supposed to be. He was supposed to be the next great New York, like the next great sniper on that team, and he's frankly not done
Yeah.
much at all. Like it's crazy because there was conversations when the Flames were looking to move Noah Hannafin of us bringing in Lafreniere, and I still was one of the people saying that the Flames probably shouldn't do that, but there was a little bit of me that was like, imagine we bring in him and all of a sudden he's good. Wouldn't that be just great?
Yeah.
Like,
And I mean, even now though, like Lafreniere's starting to pick it up again. He's got 16 points this year. It's just
oh yeah,
not star levels, but
no,
it's the kind of thing
it's
where you
not
do
what
need to
anybody
like these are
expected.
still young. Yeah. But these are still young players, and you need to let them develop. And in New York and the media climate like New York, you don't have time to do that. You just don't.
Not at all. Like even the
And
backup
it's not the
quarterback's
same for
going to be
football,
judged
but
for how he sits on the bench. Like
yeah,
you're going to get ripped apart for every little thing you do.
yeah. And that's just it's just what sucks. It's kind of unavoidable about the whole situation. And I feel for Zach Wilson. If this rumor is true, I understand it. But I don't know. I don't know what I think he's the starter. He's going to be the starter against the Texans. I think you just have to do what you've been doing all year, which is you go out, you play the best you can, you put the best film on tape that you can, and then you get out of that city as fast as you
Yeah.
can, and you're going to be a backup on some other team and hope you get another chance to show what you can do.
And the thing is, I think he will. Like, there's a lot of
He's
places
going
you
to be
could
a
go in
career
the
backup
offseason.
at this point.
You think so?
If he doesn't
Are you
improve, he's
closing
a
the
career
door
backup.
on? You're closing the
I'm
door on
not.
Zach Wilson being a starter anywhere?
I'm not closing the door on it, but I'm just saying like he's going to be when he goes to another team, he's going to be signed as a backup. He is in the
Yep.
state he is
No,
now. He's not
absolutely.
getting signed anywhere as a starter. And I don't think, and I say career backup. I'm going to say unless he has like a Geno Smith like resurgence,
And that's what I was gonna
It's
say.
going to be like
Yeah.
a starter goes down, and then if he gets another chance, I think maybe he can make it work. But otherwise, it's going to take a lot.
Yeah, and I think if I was Zach Wilson, I'd almost be trying to. I feel like you got to go and just sit behind like go to Buffalo, sit behind Josh Allen, go to Kansas City, sit behind Patrick Mahomes, go somewhere where you know you're just
Yeah,
gonna be able to sit there for a bit, like just
and
like
that's what he thought he
train
had in New
for a
York.
year. Yeah, like exactly.
Yeah,
Just train for a year. Like you said, like the Geno Smith. I don't think it has to be like that. Like sign a 1 year deal behind like the Chiefs, and then go somewhere where like maybe the quarterback's not as equipped for a full season. There's questions around him. Maybe that quarterback doesn't have a strong start to the year. Zach Wilson comes in, and maybe he's good. But I think that's what you have to do if you're
yeah,
Zach Wilson. Go somewhere where you won't start. Like I'm serious. Like you just don't want that. Because let's say he goes and signs with like I don't even know, goes and signs with the Raiders as a backup, gets in by week 6, like, and then just sucks. That's it, right? Like you're
yeah.
done. Like, why
he,
would you waste that
he
second
can't he can't
chance?
afford a failure with another team.
No.
He can't afford that
And that's what I mean. I think that
because I'm
your best option if you're Zach Wilson is to go sign with the Chiefs. Chiefs, Bills, like I don't know.
yeah.
Bengals is kind of a weird, flimsy one just because of Burrow's injury history at times. But like,
I mean,
you
Bengals already have an all-star backup
true,
after last Thursday night. Jake Browning,
yeah. But you know what I
Washington
mean, though.
alumni, go Dogs.
You know what I mean, though.
Um,
Like, it's just like go somewhere where
yeah,
you can just sit for a bit. Like, just like sip your tea for a season. Let things sit. Let things simmer. And then when you're ready,
yeah,
you can WWE music, run in there, save the day. Nobody will expect it. You'll be a hero. Like, do that. That's the better option.
yeah,
Pull a Geno Smith. Sit behind
and
Eli Manning for a bit.
yeah, and I think it's the kind of thing where, yeah, like you kind of have to do that because you can't afford to flame out one more time. This is not because I was looking back through the past few NFL drafts to see like what's the precedent that's been set for past like top five quarterbacks that have burnt out, and there's not that many because either there wasn't any because it was a crappy draft for quarterbacks anyway,
Yeah.
or they mostly panned out. The last guy that was kind of a bust, and you could even argue that
Winston?
he wasn't, would be like, even before or even like later than that, it'd be
Oh, really?
Baker, because
Oh, yeah.
he played. I mean, you've got Trey Lance in the same draft as Zach Wilson, but I'm not counting that quite yet. I mean, I
Yeah,
do think
that's an
he's a bust,
interesting
but
one, isn't it?
that's a whole nother conversation because I don't
Yeah.
even think he really got a chance. But
Well, and there's been a
with
lot
Baker,
with
like
the Trey
Baker,
Lance thing. Like, there's been a
yeah,
lot. There's a lot of
Trey
levels
Lance is
to
a
it.
whole nother thing.
Yeah.
That's a whole nother thing. But Baker is different than Zach Wilson because he had success, where he was a good quarterback for at least a year, where he had an amazing year. Zach Wilson hasn't had that. So Baker Mayfield had the opportunity to go to a place like Carolina, flame out, and still be fine. Zach Wilson doesn't have that. Zach Wilson can't go to a team like, obviously not the
Well, because
Panthers
even
anymore,
with
but like
Baker, when he was with the Browns, there was a lot of people who thought that he did well at times, right? Like he
he was
nearly,
great.
yeah, he was good at
He was
times. I don't
great.
know if you can say the same thing about Zach Wilson right now.
Baker Mayfield could be afforded that to flame out in another spot, and get another opportunity with a team like Tampa where he is playing well. Zach Wilson doesn't have that. If he flames out, his career is over, and he's
And
not
that's
getting another
that.
shot.
Yep.
Yeah,
He goes and signs with like at this point it feels weird saying it, but if he goes to like the Panthers, Bryce Young doesn't exactly have a great second season, and he comes in and sucks as well. That's that. That's that. You'll be in the
yeah, it's
CFL.
done.
Come to the Stamps.
Johnny Manziel too.
Yep. Like it's just that type of thing, right?
Yeah,
God, that'd be
maybe
so
get
funny.
some snaps in the
I'm-
new like XFL USFL thing.
I was gonna say, imagine a world where Zach Wilson is like the starting quarterback for like the Saskatchewan Roughriders.
I could see it. I could see it.
Yeah.
Give
Switching
it like
the
5
greens
years. I
out.
could see it. That's what I wonder if he's on. The thing I always find funny with the CFL is their like negotiation lists where it's all these players who they're like keeping an eye on, who they know might flame out. So they've always got like some really high profile like NFL guys that have just been drafted. Um, it's really interesting. He maybe I don't know if he's on any team's negotiation list, but that would be an interesting thing.